Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another edition of Last Mark Standing right here on PWF Empire. I am Jay, your host and judge for the festivities. We have three competitors fighting it out tonight for the right to call themselves the Last Mark Standing. They are PWF Empire contributors Tony, Lucas, and Andrew. Are you guys ready?
I was born ready.
Absolutely, brother.
You know you stole that line from somebody on the last episode.
Who?
Evan. He said that already.
There's a trend there. Hey, since when we're saying it's copyrighted, I can say that.
Gimmick
right?
infringement, man.
No.
And you said there's a trend. You do know he kind of... Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a different story. I'm here to save the day.
Okay. Alrighty, well, we'll see how that goes. We are doing our part 2 for the PWF Empire Year-End Awards. We have a few more categories that the fighters will be debating tonight, and the first among them, well, before we get to that, I do have to break it down to you all how Last Mark Standing actually works. Last Mark Standing is judged on 3 rounds of competition. Each round starts with a pro wrestling related question. We move from the question to the actual answers in our opening statement, and from there we go into the roundtable debate, followed by our closing comments. And each round is worth a set amount of points. You do not win based off of the best answer. You win based off of the best argument, and the person with the best argument wins the points. And when everything is said and done after the 3 rounds, the person with the most points will be crowned the Last Mark Standing. The first round for Last Mark Standing number 2, Electric Boogaloo, is this. What is the epic fail of the year 2016 in wrestling? We're going to get the festivities kicked off with Tony.
The epic fail of 2016 is James Ellsworth. Say it with me, people. James Ellsworth. Now we can stop saying it forever and ever more. Please and thank you.
Wait a minute, we still have a round to go. You got to let us know why. But before we get there, we do have to get the answers from our other 2 competitors. Lucas, epic fail for 2016.
That's easy. The biggest, most epic fail of 2016 is Seth Rollins, and I'll explain why. Bear with me here.
And Andrew, epic fail of 2016.
All right, epic fail of 2016. What you have to do is face the facts. It is Kurt Hawkins.
Interesting pick there. I cannot wait to see you argue this one. And since I can't wait, take it away.
Oh, shit. Before I really get into it, if you're just looking at when the brand split happened, they were announcing and everyone had all these speculations of all the different superstars that they would bring back. You know, they signed people like Shelton Benjamin, which was really good. And people were speculating Kurt Angle and all these people. What did we end up getting? This version of Kurt Hawkins, which has a stupid accent and a stupid gimmick. Now, what makes it fail is Kurt Hawkins in his first run with the company back in 2007, 2008, I believe, he was probably a mid-level talent that was underused. He was a former tag team champion, had a really good run with La Familia, and as a singles competitor was really underrated. He's better on the mic than what he shows, and in ring, he's actually pretty darn good. It is a failure that they brought him back and labeled him with this awful gimmick that is a ripoff of both Chuck Norris and Eva Marie. I mean, come on now, that's awful.
What? Here's a real failure for you. Seth Rollins is the failure of 2016 because, no offense to your pick, Andrew, but Kurt Hawkins is a guy that was already deemed to be something of a loser even prior to signing with WWE. But Seth Rollins is a failure in the fact that he disappointed and upset everyone once again this past year, given the high expectations that were expected for him heading into 2016 after his injury. Everyone had so much praise and love to throw at Seth Rollins when he first came back, that he was going to win the title, that he was going to be the man. And guess what happened? None of that happened. Seth Rollins has been a joke on Monday Night Raw. He's been a laughingstock. Without Triple H there, Seth Rollins has essentially become an afterthought, a spoiled little baby who everyone is simply tired of listening to. It's the same thing each and every single week with Seth Rollins. And here we are. We were supposed to expect big things from this guy in the year 2016, and yet we didn't get a resurgence angle out of him. Instead, what we got was a complete mockery of him, much like the year prior to that. So that's 2 years in a row that Seth Rollins has been complete failure. And as far as James Ellsworth is concerned, he's just that. He's a jobber. I mean, what can you say is epic failure about him when he's never really been in the WWE? Like,
oh,
come
honey,
on, Coach.
thank you so much for my introduction. Let me start by saying I blame you for forcing me to actually defend Seth Rollins. But this year, on his return, his problem was not himself, but his booking, and he made the most of some awful booking. I will agree. However, he had some really interesting moments. We've had some Shield reunions. I need you to have several seats. On a Shield reunion alone, that made his entire year better than anyone else that's happened so far.
A Shield reunion? You're going to tell me a
reunion, but do you know how many Shield fans marked out? That alone just disqualifies you from the conversation. You can have a seat over there now.
No, it does not.
So,
no.
Hold on.
Who? We didn't know who he was to begin with, so how could his return be a failure if he was never an actual footnote into anything ever?
I agree with that one.
Come on, no way.
James Ellsworth, his purpose in being brought in was to save a waffling, disgusting, horrible feud between the lame Dean Ambrose, who doesn't
Wait, I'm sorry.
Right, I'm not done talking. When my mouth goes open, yours goes shut. Thank you.
Ms. Mark.
Anyway, as I was saying, when he came in, his job was to bring some humor and some life to a flagging feud. Dean Ambrose, it sucks unless he's chasing something, and he had finally lost the belt, but they did not want to let go of that stupid feud that was incredibly lame. So what did they do? They brought in something almost as lame, possibly more lame, to make it better. And what did they do instead? They tore down AJ Styles. In a year where he was seen in the Royal Rumble, in a year where he had an actually pretty awesome feud between him and the Club and then the Usos and Roman, in a year where he had Cena versus Styles, in a year where he finally had the WWE champion after chasing years and years. He has a 3-1 record with James Ellsworth.
Oh, so then to your wait. So you're calling
his purpose was to bring up this feud, and all he did was destroy one of the headliners. The other headliner barely had anything going for him to begin with, but what little he had was ruined by this little piece of garbage, chinless blunder dude, and all because they thought that this would be funny. And guess what? He's still not funny now. He wasn't funny then. If they'd done it once, it would have been cute.
So
but
you're
once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Or vice versa, Switbit. Fool me 3 times, are you frickin' retarded? Learn from your mistakes. Because his character was brought in to rebuild a feud that...
No, it wasn't. That's what you thought? That's what you thought?
That was his purpose. Then they got people buying T-shirts, and they're like, "Hey, let's make some more money." Because
exactly. You know what?
His purpose is to be a jobber, to be a comedy act on TV. That's what his role was.
Feud, and he failed miserably because instead
he wasn't supposed to accomplish anything.
See
what was he supposed to accomplish?
Cena were in the same ring. Everybody was cheering Cena, and nobody really gave a damn about Styles, even though he put on a pretty darn good performance.
Wait! Nobody cared about Styles. What?
That's a ridiculous claim.
Not if you look at it in terms of on the standard that he had before, the phenomenal one, the way people used to cheer him on equal level with Cena. They had a 10-minute cheer off Styles versus Cena. And this time you could barely get a freaking Styles chant.
But
I mean, he survived Jericho versus Styles and still was considered popular. And all it took was James Ellsworth to ruin that. And thus, he is the epic fail of the year. Well, besides the fact that he's a botch in existence.
Well, that's what he was. He's always been a botch. Nothing has changed about him. He was never intended to be taken seriously, not by WWE, not by us, the fans.
He's a fail, which means he's the epic fail of the year.
That's not a failure to me. A failure would be an upset, and an upset, a big upset at that is Seth Rollins.
A botch is a failure to perform. And guess what? He has failed to perform in the task he was brought here for. His task
to be a joke, he's accomplished that. He's accomplished being a joke. If anything, he's accomplished something.
Exactly. That ridiculous feud. He did no such thing. All he did
was not the centerpiece. He was not the centerpiece around the feud between AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose. If you really thought he was there to set the standards high, I'm sorry.
No, I think there to revive the feud, bring new life to the feud, bring new interest to and all he did was make fun of and make a mockery of the phenomenal AJ Styles. In that one regard alone, he is the epic fail of the year. Not to mention, what has he done? I don't get the humor. It is really pathetic, this guy. The only thing he was good for was getting beat up. And I get it, sure, some people think that's funny stuff, because that's what wrestling's all about, people getting beat up. But I prefer to have some kind of intellect in my wrestling, and the very fact that anyone would think that it was smart to use beating AJ Styles on 3 separate occasions as a thing that would be smart is infuriating to me.
But from a company standpoint, James Ellsworth is not a fail. They brought him in to be a jobber, and he has gotten his ass kicked multiple times. And from a company standpoint, he has sold them a lot. They've made him a lot of money off of James Ellsworth, so how is he a fail? He cannot be making that much money in that company. And to turn it on to just like you said,
he's still been part of the product. And he's still been part of the product. If he was such a failure, he wouldn't be televised every week.
Exactly.
He's got a couple months
he has
left.
not been relegated to superstars or main event like Kurt Hawkins. But anyway, moving over to you, Lucas. Okay, Seth Rollins has not had the greatest year. However,
he's had the worst year.
He has not had the worst year in the company. First of all, he has a lot of merchandise sales too. And from a company standpoint,
everyone has merchandise sales.
Kurt Hawkins doesn't.
Well, Kurt Hawkins is not a star. He's not supposed to be a star.
But that's what they brought him in to help the roster. That's the whole reason why they
brought him in.
They used him as a joke, much like they had with James Ellsworth.
They brought him in to fill out the roster, and guess what? He filled in a space where they needed someone to get beaten, and he did. And I agree. They brought James Ellsworth in to get beaten, and he won 3 times. So guess what? He failed again, because that's what jobbers are supposed to do. They're supposed to lose. They're supposed to get their butts kicked. They're supposed to make the people who are not jobbers look better. And he did not do any of those things. He failed on an
if I remember correctly, were any of his wins clean?
It doesn't matter.
It does.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Because guess what? Does it mention whether or not they were clean wins or not? No, they just mentioned that they were wins.
It is time for our closing arguments. Who or what is the epic fail of 2016? I'm going to throw it to Lucas this time around. Go ahead and deliver your closing argument for epic fail of 2016.
Seth Rollins is an epic failure in the regard that when you're looking at expectations, when you're looking at big things to come for a certain top star in the company, such as a Seth Rollins, who everyone has high regards for and high standards for, and he has that kind of year where he doesn't accomplish absolutely anything, I'm sorry, that's what a failure is to me. James Ellsworth, he's not a star. He's not supposed to be a star. He's a comedy act, and that's exactly what he has been, and he's been accomplishing that. That does not define what a failure is to me. As far as Kurt Hawkins is is concerned, his past with WWE, never a star, came back to not be a star once again. That's not a failure either, because no one expected this man to be a star. If he were to be a star, or if he was a star and is doing what he's currently doing right now, then I would qualify him as an epic failure, but not in this case.
Andrew, your closing argument for Kurt Hawkins' epic fail of 2016.
Okay, so first of all, to say that he wasn't anything back in his original one is ridiculous. First of all, he is a former tag team champion. Second of all, he was involved in the main event of a WrestleMania when you interfered with the match against The Undertaker. Not many people can say that they've been involved with The Undertaker. Moving on to James Ellsworth, they brought him in for a very specific reason. First of all, just because you don't think he's funny doesn't mean other people don't. Comedy is very subjective, and you can't base everything off of your personal feelings with that. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? He has sold a lot of merchandise, and he has lost a lot of matches. And on top of that, when he has won, it's because of outside interference. He is doing his job. And Seth Rollins, he is still getting a decent crowd reaction. Kurt Hawkins is getting zero reaction, which is ridiculous for someone who the company brought back to help the roster. That's stupid.
And Tony, your closing argument. James Ellsworth, epic fail of 2016.
As far as Kurt Hawkins, sure, he won a belt. It happens on occasion. He interfered with a match. It happens on occasion. It doesn't make you a superstar. And they were trying to fill out the ranks. Everybody knew that. Nobody really took it seriously to begin with. So why would anyone see it as a failure when it didn't work out? It was what it was. He came in, he saw, he was seen, it's over. Seth Rollins has had several merchandise changes in the short time that he has been back, and they've all sold well. He has been in several main events. He's been in more than one feud. He's been in title matches and mark-out moments since he's returned. And every single time, whether I like the guy or not, he has managed to punch the crowd. He's gotten them lit. He's gotten them excited. He's gotten them pumped. How is that a failure? It doesn't matter what your expectations are, because guess what? We all have them, and some of them are higher than others. But he still met superstar expectations, even if they're not as high as you might have had for him in particular. Ellsworth, however, his job was to rebuild some fire and interest in a lagging feud. And what he did instead was take down one of the top stars in the company several notches. How many people are bringing up this 3-1 record he has with this jobber? Jobber. We all call him a jobber. But my thing is, he's a jobber who beat AJ Styles 3 times in a row. How is that not failing in his duty as a jobber? His job is to sit there and lay down and take the pin. And instead, he's bringing down the name of the WWE Championship. He's bringing down the name of the WWE Champion. How is that winning for anyone? Epic fail.
Alrighty, and that is it for the first round. Now it's time for a bit of analysis. If I'm being completely honest, this one was kind of easy because two people in particular kind of shot themselves in the foot with their own arguments. And I'm going to start with one of those people. Andrew, you placed a cap on Kurt Hawkins when you said that in his previous run in WWE, he was a mid-carder. So that's effectively you telling us that in his entire run in WWE, he's never been anything more than that. It doesn't really reach the level of epic fail if a person is a mid-carder and they weren't even looked at as to be some kind of a superstar upon their return to WWE. So I can't really score the argument for you. Lucas, I wish that I would have heard more in support of Seth Rollins being the epic fail, like you going into more detail and specifics on the ways in which he's failed in the year 2016. But it's like James Ellsworth that dominated the conversation. And on the side of Tony, you said yourself that James Ellsworth was brought to bring some fun and humor to the Dean Ambrose and AJ Styles feud. Once again, I said life. That's setting a cap on him. And Lucas, he flawlessly argued in favor of James Ellsworth actually accomplishing what he was set out for. So not necessarily for your argument specifically, but for the way in which the other arguments were torn down. First round, point goes to Lucas.
Wow. Here we go.
Are you surprised?
Fail. New epic fail
I'll just say,
of 2016.
I'll just say that was a fun first round. I'm ready for more.
Okay, you're ready for more? Let's move on to round two, and we're going to do the flip side of things this time around. This is going to be for the mark-out moment, the moment that really got you excited in 2015, maybe even jumping up, screaming in just greatness and absolute joy. This time, I'm going to go to Andrew and ask you, what was your mark-out moment for 2016?
My mark-out moment of 2016 was AJ Styles' debut in the Royal Rumble.
Okay, and Tony, your mark-out moment for 2016?
It was Miz on Talking Smack. Oh, loved it. Everything.
And Lucas, your mark-out moment for 2016?
The biggest mark-out moment in all of WWE in 2016 was Shane O'Mac's return. Baby!
Okay, and now that we have all of the picks set, let's fight it out.
Okay, Shane McMahon returning to the WWE is easily the mark-out moment of 2016. You're talking about a dude who has been away from wrestling, in fact, all of WWE for 6-7 years, coming back out of nowhere in a nowhere kind of city like Detroit, where Jay actually grew up.
Excuse me?
Hey, wait, but hold on. You're going to feel better about this, because when Shane McMahon returns to Detroit, he makes Detroit lit and fired up as they've never been before. And they just absolutely go crazy for Shane McMahon in a city you'd figure would be like New York or Chicago or Boston. No, it was in Detroit. He was able to electrify the arena that night, much like the entire world that was watching on TV. Social media was buzzing. This was out of nowhere. It was kept a secret. No one knew about it. No one knew what was going on. There were no rumors, no headlines, none of that. It was just Shane McMahon coming back old school fashion, showing up and just popping out of nowhere. And man, that has to be the moment of the year right there. Mark out moment of the year. Shane McMahon. In fact, not just him returning, the reception he got, the promo he cut, everything about that was freaking great. Like, the entire segment was centered around Shane McMahon. He was able to just make it be all about him for 20 plus minutes or however long that segment ran for. Everything was beautiful in that one defining moment right there for Shane McMahon. As I mentioned, it was kept a secret. We talk about AJ Styles' debut. Okay, that can arguably be another mark-out moment, but it was already spoiled. We knew about it in advance. It was rumored. There was speculation going on the internet. All of that was going on. So you kind of already knew. And actually, it was confirmed AJ Styles was going to be in the Royal Rumble. If you want to talk about in terms of being technical, AJ Styles was already rumored for that. So I can't sit there and say that I was glued to my TV screen as much as I was with Shane McMahon, because Shane McMahon electrified me even more, much like the entire Detroit crowd that night. As far as Miz is concerned, well, where was his crowd? As far as I'm concerned, Talking Smack doesn't have a crowd. He didn't do that on SmackDown, what he did there with Daniel Bryan. He did that on Talking Smack, a show where it's only centered around the panelists that are there, not so much in front of fans. So you can't really determine who marked out or not in that regard.
That is a very okay. So what you said is true. AJ Styles, it was telegraphed before he came. However, the simple fact that AJ Styles, Mr. TNA, would eventually make his way to WWE is mind-blowing in and of itself. No matter if they said beforehand, Shane McMahon is Vince McMahon's son. He was eventually going to come back anyway. It doesn't.
No, that was not a given. They had beef when he left.
No, it doesn't. Well, do you really want me to go that far in the future? Vince is an old dude. In a few years, he could have passed away, and Shane would have been back at some point.
But you're talking about hypothetical analysis. That's a hypothetical comparison.
But no one before this year, no one could have ever said AJ Styles in a WWE ring. He was Mr. TNA, New Japan Pro Wrestling.
But it was already spoiled.
And you know what? People still went nuts. People went crazy.
They did, but Shane McMahon had more of an impact.
No, the same effect that happened in your arena happened at the Royal Rumble too, because he came in number 3. No one, when surprise entrants happen in the Royal Rumble, they don't come in that early.
But you always expect surprise entrance in the Royal Rumble match anyway. So even if AJ Styles wasn't to be announced in that match, you already know going in there's going to be a surprise entrance. So in regards to the entire appearance by AJ Styles, I'm sorry, but you lose points there because Shane McMahon, again, a mark-out moment. What a mark-out describes and defines to me is something that is really held of shock value. That was not shock value, in my opinion, with AJ Styles.
Okay,
yes,
first and foremost, that's really sweet. A mark-out moment is a moment that puts you in touch with why you love this business. And I'm sorry, yes, it was really exciting, and I even think it was pretty cool that, Mr. TNA, Mr. New Japan made his appearance here in the WWE. But guess what? Happens all the time. I mean, it's not as big as that, but guess what? It happened when Hogan and Diesel and Reza Ramon decided to uproot themselves from WWF back in the day and head over to WCW. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but it's happened before. And sure, it's an iconic moment and really awesome and a lot of fun, but guess what? It's happened. We've seen it, and sometimes we've seen it better.
Plus, he wasn't known as Mr. TNA anymore.
Not done yet. Now we're going to get to you, my friend. Shane McMahon returning is a mark-out moment. I'm sorry.
You're going to say it's not?
Coming into a McMahon-owned building with a McMahon-run crowd and being...
What does that even mean? Wait, hold on a second. You're acting like Shane McMahon runs the WWE. Just because he has the last name McMahon doesn't mean he's running things behind the scenes.
WWE. And guess what? You knew it was coming because guess what? It's in their blood. And you
didn't.
Yes.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No,
I
didn't.
What was happening that night?
You're going to tell me you knew Shane McMahon was coming back that night? Answer that question. Hold on. Answer that question. You're going to tell...
And you're talking over me, so that's why you didn't hear it. I said I may not have known it was coming that night, but I knew it was coming. So while it was exciting and it was fun, it's not an iconic moment. We're not going to think back on it.
It's not an iconic moment.
It's going to be like, yes, I remember when he came back. It was kind of cool. But you know what was really awesome? Do you remember how this Talking Smack show didn't exist before the Miz totally blew our minds? Do you remember how people...
Well, actually, something crazy always happens on Talking Smack.
Well, you want to know why that started? Because of Mike the Miz. Because before Mike the Miz, there was no Talking Smack. It was just going to be another one of those after show things that they put out there to try and pump up the ratings for WWE Network. But guess what? Mike the Miz went on that show and he blew the tops off of people's head. Was it a shoot? People who are legitimate journalists who were reporting on this as if it were a shoot. Nobody knew. Was this something that had been planned in advance? Was it something that was completely off the cuff? Was he about to get fired? What was going to happen next Tuesday on SmackDown? Nobody knew what to think.
Again, it didn't happen on SmackDown. Did not happen on SmackDown.
Excuse me, did you stop becoming a wrestling fan when the show ended? No, you still go out and you watch them live at live events. You still go out and you enjoy stuff, whether you're watching it live at home or if you're watching it live there. I didn't.
But how do you know?
No.
How do you know who marked out? How do you know who marked out? At least we know from an image who marked out, who really did mark out with Shane McMahon's return.
All over the internet, people who hated the Miz became misfits.
And people still hate the Miz. Everyone loves Shane O'Mac, though.
Everyone loves AJ Styles.
Everybody loves AJ Styles. Not everybody loves Shane O'Mac. But guess what? Whether you're a face or whether you're a heel is not what it was about. It was about that adrenaline that was running through your veins, the way you kept replaying it so you could try and see.
There was no reaction there. There was no reaction happening live. You need a reaction to determine what's a mark-out moment.
Guess what? You're missing one key component in wrestling in 2016, and that's social media. And the social media buzz on that.
Okay. And Shane McMahon had social media buzz across the entire world, and he headlined WrestleMania. He headlined WrestleMania over AJ Styles and over your beloved Miz.
Man headlines WrestleMania. That's news, guys.
He headlined WrestleMania. He was in a match against The Undertaker inside Hell in a Cell. What did The Miz do at Mania? And what did AJ Styles do? Oh, he lost to Chris Jericho.
It's not about WrestleMania all the time. Sometimes it's about impact. And guess what? The impact.
That's what I'm saying, though. Shane McMahon had impact.
Nowhere near with the impact of creating a show. He built what that show was about. He built what
everybody has. Everybody has. Talking Smack is a great controversial trash talk show that airs every single week after SmackDown, no matter who they put in that position.
Talking Smack. Half the people didn't even watch Talking Smack before he had that one segment. But that one segment, it relaunched his entire career. It helped launch SmackDown because now everybody wants to see first what happened in the actual wrestling show. Then they want to see what their favorites are going to do on Talking Smack. And then everybody's on their seat to see what happens again on Tuesday because it's basically a symbiotic experience. And
do you know who impacted having a SmackDown to begin with? Shane McMahon. Because he was part of the brand split and why it actually happened. There was talk of a brand split even happening when Shane McMahon first came back. At first it was a rumor and then it became a fact. So if anybody had impact, you should be thanking Shane McMahon for even allowing The Miz to have that kind of time and ability to impact you.
Basically, in business, things don't happen that fast, sweetie. So that brand split has been coming since long before Shane McMahon decided to return home.
You don't know that. What we do know is that Shane McMahon is there when the brand split happens. That's a fact.
Business, you don't one day do something and the next day have turnaround. It takes time to make what you want to happen become a reality. So guess what? They may have wanted the brand split for a long time, but it took them time.
Don't know that.
Contracts right? Yes, I do, because I know business. It took time for them to get the contracts right. It took them time to get the network on board. It took time to build the package. And maybe Shane McMahon was a piece of the pie that was needed to kind of finish things out. But guess what?
He's responsible for the Miz having that moment.
My counter to both of you guys. Okay, so first of all, Lucas, it wasn't shock of the year. It's mark-out moment of the year. And speaking of making impact way too easy, AJ Styles made tons of impact all over when he debuted at the Royal Rumble. Was the Miz's promo great? Yes, but it was just a promo.
Right.
It's a promo on a show that took place that people weren't watching at the time.
People didn't watch Talking Smack at the time. Not everyone is subscribed to the WWE Network, and not everybody knows who AJ Styles is. Not everyone knows who AJ Styles is, but everyone knows who Shane McMahon is.
Not everybody cares about Shane McMahon because he's just another McMahon to a lot of people, like myself.
I'm sorry, being a McMahon is a big deal.
And guess what? He's just another one of the products of his genetic jackhammer. So guess what? It's super nice and super sweet that he came back to the family fold, but we all knew it was happening someday.
No, we didn't. People were actually questioning whether or not Shane McMahon would ever return because of
he was going to come back, man.
Guess what? Not everybody knew who he was, and some people were excited because other people were excited. And you know what? now seeing more of him and seeing the whole changeover, I can see it was really exciting and it was really sweet and it's nice. It was fabulous for you. But guess what? What put me in at the core of who I am as a wrestling fan is when I lose that line between reality and fiction. When that hit looks a little too hard, when what that person just said seems a little too real, when it gets me in the gut. And I'm sorry, there's nothing about AJ Styles arriving in WWE that gets me in the gut as a wrestling fan. There's nothing about Shane McMahon, the baby coming back to the family, the prodigal son returning, that gets me in the gut, because to be honest, I really believed eventually it would happen. They'd work it out because it's a multi-billion-dollar business. But you want to know what got me in the gut? The
Can't deny his
Miz's
moment.
appearance on Talking Smack. It hit me where I live as a wrestling fan. Was it real? Was it not? What was going to happen next week on SmackDown? What was going to happen next week on Talking Smack? What am I what did it?
But it didn't shake the core.
No.
It didn't shake the core of wrestling like you think it has. It really hasn't.
Daniel Bryan be able to get one more match? Is it possible? Because guess what? Nobody thought it was possible before that moment, but all of a sudden,
but it still hasn't happened, and we don't know if it is going to happen.
Let me jump in here. Let me jump in. Okay, Tony, closing argument for Mark-Out moment.
What, like I said, being a mark is more than whether or not you're sitting at the live shows, whether or not you're watching it on home. Being a mark is about love for the business. And what makes you love this business is, at least from what I've seen and from my personal experience, it's those moments that hit you where you live. AJ Styles arriving, it's a cool pop moment, and I think it's really fun that it's kind of a throwback to the 90s when they had the wars, and they, a lot of WWE superstars ended up over on WCW. It's kind of cool in that throwback-ish way to me, but I've seen it done, and I've seen it done better. In terms of Shane McMahon returning, the prodigal son always returns. This is biblical. We all know it was coming. So maybe it was an exciting moment in some senses, but did they actually, what did it really mean? It meant that what we all expected to happen someday happened on that day. And what made it more murky is that we didn't see it coming. But it's not something that I'll always remember. What I'll always remember is moments that remind me of my passion and my love for this business, of those moments when I thought that the Ultimate Warrior was a real life superhero, when I thought that there was nothing cooler than what The Rock and Sock Connection were doing in the ring in that moment, in that this is your life skit. In the first time that we see The Miz and Daniel Bryan going head to head on Talking Smack, it hit me where I live, in a place I haven't been touched since the Attitude Era, where the lines between reality and fiction, they blur, and it just becomes magical, and you're sucked in. And when you get online, everybody's talking about it because everybody wants to see what everybody else is saying, and it's all over the news, and it's it's just a total wrestling boner.
Lucas, Mark-Out moment for 2016. Closing argument.
Okay. To me, a Mark-Out moment is when you can get everyone in the wrestling universe to mark the fuck out. And that's what Shane McMahon accomplished from home, whether you were there live, it doesn't matter. Shane McMahon made you mark the fuck out. And Tony's talking about, she's talking about buzz and whether or not this was real. Well, guess what? When Shane McMahon entered the ring that night, you wanted to actually know if that was unscripted. Like that's how it felt. And also, you wanted to know if there was real tension between the McMahon family, because when they were in the ring, you did not know what the fuck was going on. When Shane McMahon was like, oh, she doesn't know. She doesn't know, does she? Everything about that was magic. It was perfect. Oh, it was old school. It was organic. You didn't see it coming. That's what a real Mark-Out moment is. As far as AJ Styles, debuting in the Royal Rumble is concerned, again, it was expected. It's predictable. Returns or debuts or what have you, they always happen in the Royal Rumble. Whereas with Shane McMahon, it happened on a Raw, but on a Raw that will always be historic and influential and memorable because of what Shane McMahon was able to accomplish that night, and the entire year drove off of that one night with Shane O'Mac. As far as Miz talking appearance on Talking Smack is concerned, that was just a little promo. I'm sorry. He had his 5 minutes of fame, but it was nothing different than any other Miz promo. The only difference is this one was a little bit better, but in terms of shaking up the entire wrestling business or changing it at its core, no, he did not accomplish that. I'm sorry. It was just a pretty good promo. That's all I can really say for that. I'll give you that. He had his 5 minutes of fame, but Shane McMahon had a year of fame because of that one mark-out moment that will go down in the calendar year as historic. It doesn't matter if he's a McMahon. It doesn't matter. You did not see that coming, and you can't say Shane McMahon was going to come back because you didn't know that. Again, the way he went, the way the circumstances fell apart, when he left WWE, you wouldn't think that he was going to come back. It wasn't that obvious. So, again, back to the original statement here, Shane McMahon was able to get everyone to jump off of their seat, and that's that.
And Andrew, mark-out moment.
Okay,
2016.
so as I originally said previously, it's Shane McMahon, dude. I understand it was a great moment in time, but he was going to come back. You can't, as a family of the person of like one of the grandfathers of wrestling, he was going to be there. You know what I'm saying? In terms of you, Tony, it was a great promo, but it wasn't even fully the Miz's moment. There were other people involved that gave him the opportunity for that moment, like Daniel Bryan, Renee Young. They were there with that. AJ Styles coming into WWE was something that people for years and years never thought would happen. On the level, and I'm going to say this, of Sting coming to WWE. When it eventually happened, everyone went crazy. If you look at the reactions on Twitter, on YouTube, like whatculture.com, stupid crazy. His impact that he made, again, too easy, is something that'll be felt for years. Shane coming back is just, I don't know. It was a good moment, but it's not as big a deal, man.
Let me just go ahead and say that was a much better round than round number one. I think that each of you had very strong arguments and actually very strong defenses too. Lucas, you kind of came in late in the game with a very impactful punch that I wish that you would have hit on more. And I guess you kind of did, but it's just something about that really just like knocked me the hell out when you said that Shane McMahon coming back to WWE at that very moment in time, that night, it set the tone for the rest of the year. And talking about the brand split and that Shane McMahon coming back to WWE being the catalyst of that, that was nice on your part. AJ Styles, and as far as Andrew is concerned, talking about the impact that he made coming to WWE and the level of hype that came along with that. And Tony, with The Miz, you were very passionate and delivered a great argument for what that meant for you as a fan. And I love the fact that you battled back, like you threw off this criticism that was waged against you that because it didn't happen in a live arena, that somehow takes away the mark-out momentness of what happened. And I think that you effectively blew that right off. With there being very strong arguments and strong defenses and strong like counterattacks, that was a very strong round. That's basically what I'm trying to say. It was fucking strong. One person, however, really went in deep about what the moment meant for them, and they really captured that mark part of mark out moment. And so, with that being said, the second round of Last Mark Standing, the point goes to Tony.
Wow.
Wow. Jesus Christ.
I'm telling you, she did a damn good job. Like I said, the passion that she spoke with and talking about how that moment affected her as a fan. Like from Lucas and Andrew's perspective, you were hitting more on the most impactful moment, or the moment that really just like shook the wrestling industry at its foundation, or whatever it may be. But Tony, like I said, she captured the Mark part of Mark-Out moment, so that's why I had to give the point to her.
Yeah, we're marks, dude. It's about the love of the business. It's not about the daddy's little boy and Sting Part 2.
She called AJ Styles Sting Part 2. Wow.
Okay, so the fighting is over in that round. We are going to move into the final round of this edition of Last Mark Standing. The current total score: Tony with 1 point for winning round number 2, and Lucas with 1 point winning round number 1. Andrew has yet to get on the board, but he does have an opportunity to run away with the whole competition with this final round of the night. And with this being worth 2 points, the winner of round number 3 will be the winner of this edition of Last Mark Standing. The big question for tonight: what is the match of the year? Gonna throw it over to Lucas.
The match of the year of 2016 is Nakamura versus Sami Zayn from NXT TakeOver Dallas. And in terms of what this match accomplished, there's a lot to get into here.
Okay, and I look forward to getting into that, but first we have to find out what Andrew thinks is a match of 2016.
Sure. So the best match of 2016 was Will Ospreay versus Ricochet from the Best of the Super Juniors.
Okay, and Tony, close it out. What is your pick for match of the year in 2016?
As much of a Roman mark as I am, I actually went with Miz versus Ziggler at No Mercy. That was my match of the year.
Okay, and now that all of the picks have been made, this is the main event of Last Mark Standing. Show up, show out. Let's get it started.
Okay, the reason why I chose Miz versus Ziggler, it's almost because of how incredible they managed to be from the level of obscurity they came from. I mean, nobody, say, at the beginning of the year could have seen this kind of impactful feud and match from these two guys at that point. But by No Mercy, they built a real legitimate feud. There was really, like, all hearts were in. Most people thought it was going to be Ziggler's last match, and that this was some major way that they were going to send Ziggler away and bring him back as a new character. There was so much life coming into it. And then you took the guy nobody thought belonged in the business and the guy everyone thought did nothing but lose, and you put them head to head, and you gave they had this passion and this fire, and they told the story from the first touch to the end of the match when they were pulling away. And the only complaint I heard from anyone about the match was that it should have been the main event.
Okay, and Nakamura versus Sami Zayn were all of those things plus more in what you described there, because Nakamura versus Sami Zayn gave you a story, had the dramatic side, had the passion from both wrestlers in Nakamura, in Sami Zayn, had the athleticism, had the skills, had all of the reactions, and it was arguably the main event of the evening because everyone talked about how big of a match that was and how much it stole the show that night at NXT TakeOver Dallas. So you want to talk about buzz and whether or not a match stole the show and should have been deemed as main event worthy? That's what Nakamura versus Sami Zayn did at NXT TakeOver Dallas. As far as Dolph Ziggler and The Miz is concerned, you're talking about Ziggler and whether or not people actually thought he was going to retire. Please Please don't say that again. No one thought that at all. In fact, no one even cares about Dolph Ziggler, and he's not a Shawn Michaels in terms of a retirement match and getting people to care. So don't give me that argument that, oh, we didn't know if Dolph Ziggler was actually going to retire. Of course he wasn't. Of course he wasn't. And I remember people being mad that The Miz lost the title, and then a month later, everyone was happy that he won it back because they thought Dolph Ziggler was a joke. So as far as I'm concerned, a result is not what determines a match here. It's the quality of the match that determines a match being good and being deemed as match of the year. That's what Nakamura versus Sami Zayn did. No one was talking about the result. People were actually talking about how tremendous both talents were. And Sami Zayn actually told the story in that he was leaving NXT to do bigger and better things on the main roster. Then you had Nakamura come in, debut, and have a phenomenal performance that just absolutely stole the show. In fact, before they even touched each other, you just felt the energy, you felt the electricity, the buzz running down your skin, and all the chills and everything, because that moment was surreal. Nakamura's signing, coming to NXT. And as far as Ricochet and, this indie match here that Andrew has, look, that was just a spot fest, all right? That was just a spot fest. What are the stories right there? Please tell me what stories there was told.
So
there.
First of all,
besides them cursing at each other during the match.
First of all, Best of the Super Juniors is a tournament that is held by New Japan Pro Wrestling, and the fact that you called New Japan Pro Wrestling a little indie company is insulting. They're like the second biggest company in the entire wrestling landscape here. We're to the point where WWE even references them and stole their talent so they could get better. Hello, Nakamura. Okay, so first of all, the match between Will Ospreay and Ricochet, if you look at Dave Meltzer, has the highest star rating, or better star rating than any match WWE put on the entire year. So there's that.
And which match is also ranked on every single list on the wrestling websites. Nakamura versus Sami Zayn is as well. It's right up there.
It's higher.
It's right up there. You check the rankings for every single website across the wrestling news.
Yeah, but Dave Meltzer is the guy. You know that.
Okay, but you're going to take one guy over a lot of different wrestling outlets out there that are ranking Nakamura versus Sami Zayn as match of the year?
How about this? In that match, they showed so much athleticism and so much in-ring talent, it created buzz around the entire wrestling internet community to the point where Stone Cold Steve Austin was so awe-inspired that he said he could not think of another match he has ever seen that could compare to that match and the athleticism that was displayed in that match. Again,
that's just athleticism, though. Give me a story. Where's the dramatic side of it?
It's a tournament. The same thing as the CWC. It doesn't need to be that big of a story. The CWC.
Part of having a good match is telling a story. It has to accomplish that.
So are you trying to say the matches in the CWC weren't good?
Are you telling me that matches don't need to have stories?
Are you telling me that it matters if nobody sees it? Because from what I can tell, you've had your time to talk, boys. It's my turn. Now, from what I can tell, they saw it on your little separate outlets, your little NXT and your little New Japan, which you said, second biggest. But guess what? If you're not into New Japan, if you're not into NXT, you don't care. What about us casual viewers? Do you even care about us? Obviously not. Because guess what? You don't pick a match that we would see or that we would care about.
Okay, and I don't think casual fans would pick Miz versus Ziggler as match of the year either, to be quite honest with you.
What? They would at least know what the hell you're talking about.
Oh, and you don't think they would know what the hell I'm talking about? Nakamura versus Sami Zayn? Are you kidding me? You know how many people, how many eyes watched NXT that night?
Fans don't watch NXT. Otherwise, the cruiserweights would have been able to go from another championship like
fans don't watch NXT. So why has NXT become such a huge phenomenon?
Guess what? These are specialized fan groups. Specialized fan groups see these particular things and they get excited about it. Everybody sees the WWE. Everybody loves the WWE.
But that doesn't mean Miz versus Ziggler was the match of the year.
Exactly.
You've got the network, whether you don't, whether you go on YouTube, whether you've got this, that, or the third. You all know the WWE. You pay for the pay-per-views, and sometimes you get these.
Network,
but
I'm sorry.
Knows
do you know? Wait.
Know
you know WWE.com. Do you know WWE.com has Nakamura versus Sami Zayn ranked as match of the year? Did you know that? I don't think Miz versus Dolph Ziggler is on that list.
And it's kind of ridiculous for you to say people don't watch New Japan Pro Wrestling when people were so excited for Shinsuke to come over from New Japan, yet people don't know and watch it.
I said casual viewers. And I said your niche viewers. I didn't say that you don't have viewers. I said your niche viewers are going to watch that. And I'm not a niche viewer. I don't watch that. I don't have a clue who they are, don't care who they are. And unless they give me something worth caring about, then I won't. And guess what? They still haven't. I tried to watch your little matches. And like he said, yours was a spot fest. It was a, oh, look what I can do. Oh, look what I can do. Oh, look what I do. If I want to see flips and twists and all that other crap, then I'll go to damn SeaWorld. I didn't give a damn then. I don't give a damn now. As far as you and Mr. Nakamura, that was the slowest damn prize fight I've seen in my life.
Just because it's slow doesn't mean it's bad. Wait. Hold on a second. Part of a match is in-ring psychology. You need to be able to get the fans involved in a match and get them invested and hyped. That's part of it.
And who built that freaking entire match? The fans. Because they spent their entire match trying to make something out of nothing. Because it spent more than 15 minutes trying to get going for that stupid match. I couldn't care less about them. You want to know why? Because they didn't make me care. It's their damn job to make me give a damn about them. And you know what? I don't care how many flips and tricks you can do. If you don't make me care, I don't give a damn. And just because you're a wrestling purist and you're a niche market,
I thought you said you like intelligence in your wrestling.
You know what? And what's smart to me? It's making me care about what happens to these people. And no one in your match made me care. It made me really proud of them for being very athletically talented and for putting some passion into their work.
Did you even watch the whole match?
I tried, but I got bored and left.
So it's not my fault it's above your understanding.
No, it's not my fault that they weren't interesting enough for me to give a damn about. I tried.
Yeah,
I had
okay.
the effort.
Here's the thing.
That interesting.
You want to know how?
Because it was all this posturing about how, oh, Nakamura is this and Sami Zayn is this, and guess what? If this was my first time watching wrestling in my entire life, and I'm supposed to be getting excited about these characters, you know what? Who sold the entire match? The people on the mic, the people in the audience.
If this was your first time ever watching wrestling, they'd be much more excited to watch my match than either of your matches. It's quite simply.
Why?
This is not an argument about.
Because it was a bunch of tricks and flashy stuff.
Listen, this is not an argument about mic work, and it's not an argument about spots. It's quality. That's what part of having a successful match is all about. Sami Zayn versus Nakamura accomplished telling a story, accomplished the drama aspect, accomplished the physical aspect, accomplished the buzz aspect of the fans.
Accomplished any buzz. They didn't do the work. The fans did the work. The announcers did the work.
They didn't do any work.
15 minutes leaning against each other and pushing each other, and they flipped in this person over.
In-ring psychology, that's part of a match. When you can tell every single aspect of a match and bullet it and list it on your paper, that means you accomplished your job in a match. That's what they did. They chanted "Fight Forever" for God's sakes. I'm sorry. Did they chant "Fight Forever" in the match with Miz versus Dolph Ziggler? Did they chant "Fight Forever"?
That's not fair. They don't speak English.
I heard a few English chants in there.
Yeah, they were going, holy shit, holy shit.
Okay, let me go ahead and jump in here.
Fight Forever beats everything. So I think both of you guys are automatically disqualified after.
It's time to go ahead and close it up. These are our closing arguments for the last round, the main event of this edition of Last Mark Standing. We are going to start with Andrew stating his case for match of the year in 2016. Take it away.
if you were looking at a straight athletic wrestling match, there is no better wrestling match in the entire year than Will Ospreay versus Ricochet. The story was it's a tournament and they're trying to fight on to get to the next round. Okay? The match made so much buzz that the people in the WWE, Chris Jericho, Seth Rollins, Steve Austin, ex-WWE superstars, Vader, there was so much divided opinion on it that WWE wanted to sign Will Ospreay and have him in the CWC, but he said no. He was too busy doing, what do you call it, those little indie shows? Okay, if they were so lit, I'm sorry, that has nothing to do with it. Look, the match in and of itself is great. You can show it to non-wrestling fans, and they will be amazed with what people can do with the human body. Your match, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn, was slow. Was it good? Absolutely. But if you show that to a casual person, either one of your matches, they will not be as invested as they were in my match. Just simply.
And Tony.
Actually, a casual viewer of WWE would be more invested in my match than yours, because guess what? They can see flips and tricks on Cruiserweight Classic and 205 Live. And guess what? They can see those magical things
Why
that
would a
nobody
casual
else can
fan
do.
watch 205 Live?
I don't know. That's why they don't do it. But anyway, they can see it other places if they really wanted to. But guess what? That's not what draws in casual viewers. So when you get into wrestling, there are generally different things that draw you in. And some people, it's the fight technique stuff. And some people, it's the, is it this, that, or whatever. I don't care what the other people do because I don't know. So it doesn't help me. But basically what I'm trying to say is I like someone who can build the story with their bodies. I don't necessarily need you to be able to do every single wrestling move in the business, but I need to see the blood, the sweat, the tears, the passion, the excitement. I want to root for somebody and I want to hate somebody and I want to feel it all the way to my bones, whether you can do flips and tricks or not. I didn't care about Ospreay and what's his face because guess what? It felt like a spot fest. It felt like a look what I can do. And I that's just it's disappointing for me. There's a lot of people in the world who can do the whole look what I can do, but it doesn't make them great, and
Not
it
at that
doesn't
level.
bring attention. It doesn't make them, the next level. I'm sorry that for me that match it felt like a spot fest. And as far as the Nakamura Sami Zayn, I felt like they relied too heavily on everyone else to build their story because they had the package in the beginning and they had the fans screaming, "This is awesome, fight forever, blah, 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 blah," telling you how you were supposed to feel about the match. But you heard the people on the mic telling you how you were supposed to feel about the match. But if you turned off everything and just watched the match, because I actually muted it to watch the match. I did it with both matches. And I can tell you what I did and didn't feel with all three matches. I felt nothing with your matches because it wasn't a story built within the ring. It was a story built for you. With Miz and Ziggler, when he kicked out and you saw the Miz's face like, I had this, it's mine. And then he turned and you saw him building it in his head. He was thinking, what do I have to do to take you out? I will end your career if it's the last thing I do. You saw it in his face. And you saw Ziggler trying to figure out what he was going to do to survive. And he wasn't going to give up this time. He wasn't going to be the loser. And you saw that entire story that had been building to that moment play out from the second their first music hit to the moment they walked out of the match. You saw the tears in Miz's eyes at losing something that meant so much to him. You saw Maurice. It was just everyone was in the moment and they were living that story. They made me love it all over again. For a second, I forgot to be pissed that the Miz lost the belt because it was such an incredible story told in the ring.
And Lucas, our final closing argument for the third round of this edition of Last Mark Standing, Match of the Year 2016.
All right. As far as Andrew's match is concerned, I'll give it to you. It was a good match, but it was just that. It was a good match based on ability and talent and athleticism. But you can't say much about a story. You can't say much about proper presentation in terms of build-up, emotion, and drama. That match lacked all of that. As far as Miz versus Dolph Ziggler is concerned, again, I can argue the same thing and more about Nakamura versus Sami Zayn. Miz versus Dolph Ziggler, it was a good match, but it was not the most key marquee match in all of WWE in the year 2016. Nakamura versus Sami Zayn, you talk about tears and passion and sweat and laying it all on the line. That's what Sami Zayn did in that match, because NXT has such a huge following that after the match and during the match, you can tell all the energy, the emotion that comes out of Sami Zayn, knowing that this is his final performance in NXT and all the work he put in to get to this next level in his career. You saw that. And then with Nakamura, with the huge following and fan base that he has, people were excited to see what he was going to do next and what he was going to accomplish in that ring, knowing that this is one of the baddest dudes in all of wrestling. He comes in and performs, and everyone is invested. They tell the story in terms of in-ring psychology. Then you have the athleticism that's part of it. Then you have the story aspect that's a part of it, the passion, the adrenaline. You have all of that. And on top of that, you have the fans knowing who both of these men are, the stars that they are, recognizing the stars that they are outside of the WWE. You put all of that together and you got yourself a beautiful match that tells all of that, what I just explained. The Miz versus Dolph Ziggler, while it had a proper build-up, again, it's not anything that we haven't seen before in the WWE. It wasn't a unique story. It wasn't a unique match. And on top of that, I mean, how many times have we seen Miz versus Dolph Ziggler anyway? Whereas with Nakamura versus Sami Zayn, it was fresh, it was organic, and you probably haven't seen it if you haven't watched anything outside of WWE, which is why it makes that match even better as far as match of the year is concerned. So that is what I have to say.
Okay, and you all didn't see me while this was going on, but you're going to get a treat when you watch this back on YouTube. I'm just going to say this because you all, goddamn, y'all were shanking the hell out of each other in this round. I was scared for a little bit here because there were some shots being thrown, some shade being thrown, everything was being thrown. And, you know, usually it says everything except the kitchen sink. Y'all threw the goddamn kitchen sink too. So, man.
Congratulations, gentlemen. We did it. We did it.
Okay.
We made it very hard for him.
Okay. So here's the thing. Where the hell do I even start? Lucas, your motto for this round is "You shall not pass," because Tony, she laid out her case for Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz, and then you countered with, okay, well, you say Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz, they did this, that. Then you said, okay, well, Nakamura and Sami Zayn did this, that, and more. So you tried to neutralize her very early on, and I say good defense on your part. Andrew, you had a tough sell this time around, because I'm quite sure that out of all three matches, your match was probably the one that was seen the least. So you had to talk it up to a level and throw out names like Dave Meltzer and throw out names like Steve Austin to provide credibility for it. And one thing that I was waiting on you to do, because I try not to interrupt while the actual arguments are going on. And I was like, okay, well, this is what that person says about the match. Okay, but Dave Meltzer isn't here arguing. Stone Cold Steve Austin isn't here arguing. You're arguing. And you provided that context to it. So I understand what you were attempting to do. You're like, I know this match has the least visibility out of all three of them, so let me throw out these names that you all are going to recognize so that you pay attention a little bit more, and then I'll throw on my opinion and I'll fight for it. So I got to give you credit for that as well. And Tony, once again, you brought the passion to the damn table when it comes to The Miz.
You need to write promos, man.
Wait, what?
Thought about doing Rock the Mic next year.
Who, me?
Yeah, no shit. No, Tony.
Oh.
Man, she has more passion than CM Punk his last day when he was dropping pipe bombs.
Yeah, Tony, you definitely brought the passion once again. Now, here's the thing that I will say for you. There was a point where I don't know what to describe it as, but it's like this, puff your chest out, oh, I'm a WWE fan type thing. And you put Miz versus Dolph Ziggler to the side and you ran with the WWE torch. And it was all about, well, this is the only WWE match that's being fought over, so that has to count for something. And once again, I'll go back to Lucas and say, you shall not pass. When it comes down to WWE, Lucas said, well, shit, if it is only a WWE fan that only watches WWE, that wouldn't even be the match that they pick. So, you all made it tough for me, but I think that in my mind, there is one clear winner from an offensive standpoint and a defensive standpoint. So the winner of the third round and the winner of this edition of Last Mark Standing is Lucas.
Thank you.
Turn off the volume and watch the match. It was garbage. No!
But see, here's the thing, and I gotta say this, Tony.
Who does that, though?
I gotta say this, Tony.
I do. When I'm looking at my match of the year, I will watch the ones that people say are awesome and turn off the volume and be like, okay, if they're saying that this is the match of the year, what are they seeing? And I didn't see it.
Can I just go ahead and jump in here? That kind of did you in as well, because the same argument could be made for Dolph Ziggler and The Miz, because that was a match that was heavily based in story. Hell, Lucas said it himself. We've seen this match millions of times, but the difference this time around was the story going into The Miz versus Dolph Ziggler. That's what made the match different. The atmosphere surrounding it, and to say
story in the ring as well as what you were hearing around. If you turn off the volume, you still knew that this was some kind of major match that was going to be the.
You could say that for anything if you have a volume turned off.
No, you can't. Hell? Some of them, they look awful. Some matches, I'm sorry, I'm so.
There's not even commentary in my match. Like, what the fuck?
But no, you had.
I'm sorry, but that makes zero sense. Who watches anything with mute? Like what?
I do, because I want to watch the story unfold. I want to be able to be in the match without having to hear everybody else's opinions of what I'm.
But that's not possible.
Okay, well, that is it for the fighting. It's all over. Lucas, you win this second edition of Last Mark Standing, and you actually go on to the Last Mark Standing championship match. We have Duke and Lucas. So far, that third person is as yet to be determined, but we'll get there eventually. If you all want to have your say in the 2016 PWF Empire Year End Awards, all you have to do is go to pwfempire.com/dubbies and you can cast your votes there. I don't know if anyone convinced you to vote in a specific way, one way or another, but that's completely up to you. This was just pure fun, or at least I hope that it was fun. Shit, it was fun for me. It was getting a little scary there in the end. And like I said, once you guys watch this back, you'll understand why I'm saying that. But thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you next time for PWF Empire and Last Mark Standing. I am Jay. Peace.
Duke, I'm coming for you.